Hello everybody and welcome to our case study on this 2009 Chevrolet Uplander with a customer complaint of an intermittent stall. This thing, when you put it in gear, and I've got some video of that I'll play here in a second, the tachometer or the engine kind of jumps around a little bit, so does the tachometer. By putting it in gear and brake loading the engine in forward or reverse, you can sometimes get it to stall. So what we're going to do here, they're going to show you what it's doing first on the video, and then we'll jump in, grab some codes, and then see where that takes us. So let's take a look at the actual stalling condition here. So here we are with the vehicle. Basically, I've just got it in gear, and I'm brake loading, brake torquing the engine. You see the tachometer on the right, kind of jumping up and down a little bit. There is a stall. The thing that I noticed here, in addition to the stall, is the speedometer is jumping up and down quite erratically when I rev the engine up, and the vehicle's not moving. So I think what we're going to do here is check it for codes and then probably dig into that VSS signal on this car. I think we're going to start here by going in and checking the engine control module for codes. So we've got our scan tool hooked up. We're going to select engine control module. We're going to go ahead and check current and history, and we can see that we've got no faults detected here. Now we also had that flashing ABS light. So I think at this point we're going to go in also and take a look at the ABS controller and see what codes are in there. It looks like we've got some wheel speed sensor codes, pump codes, more speed sensor codes. So it is possible that given the amount of speed sensor codes and stuff like that here, that there is corrupt wheel speed sensor data moving from the ABS module over the network to the PCM, and that could be what's messing up our speedometer, or it could be a problem with a VSS input into the PCM. So I think the next thing we're going to have to do here is check the wiring diagram and system operation to see exactly where the vehicle speed sensor comes from. If it's coming from the ABS, then we're going to chase those codes down. If the vehicle speed sensor signal is coming from somewhere else, then we're going to interrogate that circuit. So what'll happen next here depends on what we find when we look at how this thing actually operates and the wiring diagram.
Just a quick note here. In this video, all of our wiring diagrams and information are supplied to us courtesy of Aide. So we know we have the speedometer jumping around. So basically what I wanted to do here was I wanted to go in and I wanted to look up speedometer operation. I suspect that the speedometer is working off of a signal, a data message from the PCM or the engine control module. So I'm going to go in here and look at the speedometer, and here we can see that the instrument panel or the cluster displays vehicle speed is determined by the engine control module. So this is a bust signal up from the ECM. So as I suspected, the ECM speedo signal is what we need to interrogate. So I'm just going to throw a scan tool on this thing, and we'll take a quick look at the VSS signal on the scan tool. So here I've got my scan tool on this vehicle. You can see I pulled up the vehicle speed sensor PID on my scan tool, and I can pretty much see here that the VSS reading on the scan tool is jumping around just like the speedometer. So the next step is to look up the wiring for the speed sensor to see if this is an input from the ABS module or not, and whatever input I'm dealing with here, I need to test it. So I went and looked up the wiring for the vehicle speed sensor. It looks like it's hardwired directly into the transmission control module. So what's happening here is the VSS signal goes into the transmission control module. The transmission control module then sends it over to the PCM on the CAN bus, and then the PCM sends speedo information up to the cluster. So we already know that the VSS input into the ECM from the transmission control module is corrupt, or it's not factual. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to scope the yellow and the purple wire here. Now this is an AC generator, so it really shouldn't produce any kind of a signal if the wheel's not turning. So when I hook up to that, this is kind of what I expect to see on these wires, is no signal being produced whatsoever. So I'm going to go ahead and hook my scope up to the yellow and purple wire here, and then we're going to start the vehicle up and see what it looks like on the scope. So this is the signal that we're seeing from the vehicle speed sensor on my scope here. I'm just going to separate these a little bit so we can see them a little bit better. So this is a signal wire, this is the return or the ground, and you can see there is a fair amount of noise in here. I'm just going to go ahead and blow this up a little bit so we can get a better look at it. So what we're seeing here is about 2.5 volts applied to the wire. Obviously it's being grounded somewhat over here, and these are times when it's grounded as well. GM does this a fair bit on some of their AC generators. They apply a bias voltage to the circuit so that they can do a circuit test, key on, engine off, to see whether the thing's plugged in or shorted or what have you. But this erratic going to ground here, the engine's running at this point, it's vibrating, and what I suspect, or what I'm seeing here, is the signal wire appears to be shorting down. So there's obviously some kind of a problem either with the sensor or with the wiring harness going down to the sensor. So my next move is going to kind of follow the harness down and see if I can find anything that would indicate I've got a wire rubbed through or something like that. So what I did here basically was I started tracing the harness back and started shaking it, and you can see from my scope here, as I'm shaking it where the harness goes back down around the engine, I can make the problem kind of come and go. And you can see my dog in the background there. And here I am holding it away from sort of the block. This goes by pretty quick on the scope here, but you can see when I start to shake it again, we can make the sort of the problem come and go. I'm going to shake it here again. There we go. So somewhere where the harness goes down behind the back of the engine here, I've got a short in the wiring. Just to finish this one off, what we found was when we traced the vehicle speed sensor harness down to the actual speed sensor, which is on the end of the transmission, you kind of get at it through the right side wheel well, and unfortunately I didn't take any video of it. We found some bare wires right close to the vehicle speed sensor. It kind of looked like somebody might have put a transmission in this thing at some point and not secured the wiring properly. So the bottom line on this one was just a wiring repair at the vehicle speed sensor was all it took to fix it up. So we're going to call this one fixed, and we'll catch you on the next case study. If you like this video, please let us know by following us or liking us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you want access to more in-depth training videos, please visit our website at www.autoaide.ca. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video.